Hi, welcome back. On today's program, we're going to talk about personal debt, things that you can do about it, but also kind of seeing where you're at in terms of your age and what the population in general says. Hi, I'm Gerald Markwith. I'm a certified financial planner, and on this channel, we direct our attention to those that are under 50 years old. We're going to talk about things that high school and college should have taught you, but never did. And just keep in mind that you're in line in the future for an intergenerational transfer of wealth, probably the world has never seen. So let's get into our subject. First, let's talk at a high level about debt. This subject is not new in history. This has been going on for thousands of years. There's a lot of quotes that you could look at. Some that come to mind come from King Solomon, where he says the borrower is slave to the lender. It's, of course, Cicero, the great Roman statesman, who said debt is poverty. And good old Ben Franklin made the comment, better to not have dinner than to rise in debt. That last statement won't please restaurants. But this whole idea of debt has been going on for centuries. In fact, it's been commonly said our economy in the US is a debt-based economy, and that's true. Obviously, things grow as a result of people borrowing money, spending now, and doing things at the moment rather than deferring what they do. We even see that starting to develop in our country with Sears, that started the idea of, you guessed it, the layaway plan. So when we look at all the different things that are going on in our society today, personal debt should be one of the things on your radar, something you want to try to get rid of. And we'll talk about that and ways to do that here in just a moment. First, I want to put up a chart. This is a chart by different age groups or generations, if you will. And they show you the average debt, this is as of 2025, that each age group has of mortgages, credit cards, auto debt, and of course, student loans. Some comments here that you want to look at is kind of size it up and say, where am I? How am I doing amongst my age group in some of this debt? But really, I want to kind of zoom out and notice some things here that actually are quite surprising, you might say. For instance, even those over the age of 80 still have, on average, over $30,000 of student loan debt. That actually surprised me when looking at this subject. Now, of course, their mortgage amounts are lower. You would expect that because they're paying them off or maybe even own their home. But when you're looking at debt, you're seeing across the board that every generation has some sort of debt in each column. Now, like we said before, debt is poverty. It's also a claim on your future earnings. It's a claim on, well, the old Disney version of the song, I owe, it's off to work I go. Those are all things that you want to try to get out of. So let's talk about ways that you might get out of some of this debt or work your way out from it. The first things are two different ways to approach debt. And we'll talk debt in general, but these two ways are generally accepted as the most popular, if you will. One is called the debt snowball, and the other is called the avalanche method. So we'll talk about those to start. The debt snowball basically says you list all of your debts in terms of dollar amount from low to high. And then you begin paying off your debt by paying the minimum on all of them except for the lowest amount that you owe. So say you owe $500 on one credit card and the rest are higher. Well, the $500 one is the one you're going to attack first until it gets to zero. And then after that's done, you're going to attack the next one and work your way down from there. This is a popular method. Dave Ramsey, for instance, preaches this particular method. And this method is effective to the extent that it gives you motivation to continue getting out of debt. As you see your credit cards going away and other debt being erased, you realize that you're making some real progress, and I'm sure you are. Now, let's talk about the other method. The other method is called the avalanche method. This is a little more mathematical and a little bit different. What this says is to list your debts, credit cards, auto loans, whatever they are, based on the highest interest rate down to the lowest. Now, the theory behind this is that, yes, you're going to make minimum payments on all but the highest interest rate. That in the long run, if it takes that long, you'll pay less interest because you're paying off the highest interest rate you have. The avalanche method, though, can take longer because, well, frankly, your highest debt may be highest interest rate. And so it could take a long time to pay off that money. Now, how are you going to pay off that money, that extra money, other than the minimum payments? Well, you're going to get a side job. You're going to look at your budget that we talked about previously and see where you can add more money to that debt itself. Because until you get out of debt, it's going to be very hard for you to reach your goals that you want. Look at it this way. Suppose, for instance, you earn 20% on a credit card. And as you're paying off that 20%, there's no other better investment you're making. There's no place else you can get a guaranteed 20% interest. So by paying off your credit card, you're essentially paying off 20% on an investment, if you will. So that's kind of a way to think about it. Now, which is better, avalanche method or the debt snowball? It seems like apples and oranges. On the one side, you get more motivation. On the other side, you're lowering your overall interest. And so that's a decision you'd want to make. You want to get more income, but you might also consider calling the companies that hold your debt and see if you can negotiate your interest rate down, or maybe they can forgive some of the debt. That's unlikely, but still, you want to at least make the attempt and see if you can't lower your overall amount. Now, when we're looking here and it comes to debt, keep in mind that this is a longer term process, not something that you get out of in a day or a week. You didn't get into debt in a day or a week. But you want to consider doing that. Now, this whole debate comes up, is certain debt better than others? For instance, a mortgage. Well, a mortgage, you're buying a house, and it is a form of forced savings if you think about it, because as you make your payment, a portion of the principal is coming down, and someday you may outright own your home. Keep in mind, though, that the average homeowner only lives in their house for 7 years. So the thought that you're going to pay off a 30-year mortgage in the same house is probably unlikely. Still, a mortgage makes sense in the sense that the house can eventually become an asset. There have been cases, of course, where the house value is upside down, that you owe more on the house than what it's actually worth. And also within a house, you have to do maintenance and upkeep that you might not have in a rental, let's say. So these are things to think about. You might look at student debt and say, well, that's a good thing to go into for debt. And it can be. You can maybe get an education that'll give you a higher paying job, and then you can pay off that debt and you're done. But again, that's determinant upon you getting a job that will pay you for the degree that you got. Unfortunately, not all people are experiencing that, especially right now. Well, these are things that you should consider doing. Ways to get out of debt. Talk to your spouse if you have one and say, how can we approach this? How can we put it in our budget so that we can make sure that down the road we have less and less debt to show for everything? So I hope you took something out of what I just said. Hope you looked at that chart very closely to see where you are. This is doable. You can get out of debt. It's a matter of a mindset, a matter of believing that debt is poverty, that you're going to get freedom from debt, that your future no longer has claims on it from creditors, that you can design your own life going forward. So I hope you took something from this. I hope you subscribe and join our channel. Certainly like what you've listened to and share with others if you can. Well, I wish you the best day you can have. Take care.